Hello, hello, hello. Hey, hey, hey. Guess who's back? It is DJ Maya. This is the Mad Chatter Show, and you have tuned into another amazing interview. We got an amazing interview. I got a guest here. I told you at the first half, if you are tuned in, that we're going to have an amazing guest for you in the second half of this show. So by now, you have danced your hour and you are ready to sit down, grab some water, and relax because we are going down the spiritual rabbit hole. I have my trusty DJ co host with me tonight. Say hello, DJ Pooh Bear.
Hello, Maya. How are you this week?
Oh, I am just dandy. Do you want to let everybody know who we have today? Introduce our new guest.
This is a just incredibly interesting woman that I first saw in an episode of Typical Skeptic when she was touching on the secret space program, which the listeners will know is what was part of my awakening. Her name's Penny Bradley, and I actually started watching her podcast, Knock Off and Pilot, and just the rabbit holes and the mind-blowing experiences she's had since she was like 4 years old will just are just fascinating to listen to. So this is Penny Bradley.
Welcome. Thank you, Penny. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. Um,
Say hello.
it's nice to be invited into a new area community. Um, yeah, we didn't exactly settle into a topic, but I think I'll go with the SSP direction first, since that's how Dawn knows me. Um,
Okay.
when I was 4, I was picked up out of my bed and driven across country. These were humans in green fatigues, and they were driving, it was in 1959, and they were driving a Korean War Jeep. It was also green. I was not the only child they were transporting. We drove mostly at night to avoid the public questions of why were these guys transporting children. Part of the way we drove through what became the maglev tunnel system. They were building it then. So part of the way we were driving underground, and part of the way we were on Route 66. And I'm from California. I still live in California, but I grew up there in the farm country, where it's most, in those days especially, it was mostly Hispanic workers who came to work the fields. And because my father was a dairy worker, I went to the labor camp school. So I grew up with minorities. And in a lot of ways, I still have that mindset.
I'm from California. I grew up in Los Angeles. I was born in Wine Garden.
I grew up north of Bakersfield, but still in the area that Buck Owens called Texas West.
Mm.
And so it's where the Grapes of Wrath, Dust Bowl people all settled. And we were poor, and all the poor people worked together, went to school together, went to church together. It didn't matter what your ethnicity was. So that's the mindset. And when I was 4, I was taken out of that. We lived in a trailer house, one of those silver things. And they came in and they got me and they took me. And we ended up at Langley, Virginia, Langley Air Force Base. And I was there most of the next 5 years. There were 1,000 kids when I got there. I was one of the youngest, but nobody was older than 8. So it was 4 to 8-year-olds, and there were 1,000 of us, and we were kept in cells. It looked like a hospital. We had a cot. We had a sink. We didn't have mirrors. We had a child-sized toilet, and everything was white. And we wore white hospital pajamas. We were not allowed to talk. The first stage was mind fracture, and I'll spare myself remembering that because it's pretty harsh. Once they had the number of fragments that they were looking for, they would send us to spend about 6 months at Montauk. And they tested us with the chair, found out what our abilities with the chair were, and then sent us back to be trained. This facility at Langley had a regeneration tank, which is it's 2 meters across. It's a cylinder. So it's 2 meters across, 3 meters deep. And there's a thing that looks like a Apple tablet on the side. And it has a little slot to put a blood sample in. And the inside, it's dark, so you can't see if anybody's in there or not. But if you're seriously injured or even dead, because it can bring you back from the dead, they will take a drop of your blood, put it in this blood samples section, hang you in the liquid inside. It's like it's not liquid, it's not solid, but it's kind of a jelly. And it's green. And you're just in there, and you eventually wake up inside it, and they haul you out and they rinse the jelly off you and put you back in pajamas.
Is that the stuff that you can eat and digest all at once that you're
Yeah.
inside?
You breathe it, you drink it, everything. While you are in it, and it's the same temperature that you are, so you don't feel it.
Oh.
So this is a desensitization tank. So you have no sensation in there at all. And I have woke up in there more than once and wondered if they let me stay dead this time.
What did it look like? Is it like a cone shaped inside or anything?
No, it's just a cylinder, like like a big can.
Oh.
And it's absolutely dark inside, and there's no sound, and because the gel comes to your skin, you don't feel it. It's the same temperature that you are. There is no sensation.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
huh?
You see it. It's like being a fish underwater, basically. You're surrounded by water, but
it's dark in there, so you can't even see. You can't see anything until they open the door at the top to take you out.
wow.
And so then, because they had this regen tank, we the survivors learned that death was not an option. Now, I say survivors because in 1964, when we were taken through a portal, well, it's not exactly a portal. It looks like an elevator. You get in this elevator, it's on the tip next to New York City of Long Island, and it's under a bridge, because we could see the bridge as we went into this building. It wasn't the Empire State Building because it's only like 6 floors. And you go in, and there's all these banks of elevators. And one of them, you get in it, they tell you don't touch the sides, to huddle in the middle. And as you go, the back opens up and the sides morph oval. And you're running through a wormhole. And when we got to the other side, it opened up just like an elevator that opens in the back. You walk out, and there's this wooden reception area, like a desk, and a big sign that says Willkommen ins Mars. And this really cranky old woman is at the desk. And she wasn't happy to see any of us.
Human?
Human.
Mm.
Everybody there spoke German. None of us spoke German. We barely spoke English. We were all little kids. But we had been at Langley for 5 years, and they had been training us to use our abilities. And so we were these psi weapons. And 20 of us showed up together at once, and they put us in 2 dorms. They didn't split us up, boy, girl. They just split us up, 2 dorms. And we were suddenly expected to take care of hair. Well, at Langley, they'd kept our heads shaved. So the hair grew out. We had to dress properly for school. The Germans put us in Schule that's German school. They put us in German school with their own children. For 10 years, they educated us.
Wow.
And then they assigned us our military jobs. I was a fighter pilot. The Germans were in a war with the Mars native raptors and the Mars native, they call them mantids, but they're really more like ants. And those are native sentient species on Mars. And when you get off Earth, everything out there already belongs to somebody else. So you either have to make a contract with the owner to sublease, or you have to go to war and take it. So we had a sublease with the Draco because they were the only ones that would work with us. But where they had available wasn't really suitable for humans. Everything was too big, it was hard to heat. It was all underground, it was hard to grow food, So they found where they wanted to be and took it. And that started a 50-year war.
Where did they start? Where did they take? What did they take?
What they had was something that's basically resembling a neutron bomb. And they would find the city area that they wanted. And if somebody else was there, they simply dropped one of those bombs and it killed every living thing there. And you only had to wait 6 months to be able to move in. And
Oh my.
everything. That's what they did. And so the raptors on Mars are 9 foot tall and look just like out of Jurassic Park, except their arms are more like ours.
Wow.
And the ant beings, they're about the same size, but you know how ants on Earth have that little wasp waist?
Yes.
They don't there.
Oh.
So they have more of a round body. They don't. That's why they're calling them mantids, is because they don't have the wasp waist.
Interesting.
But they're very telepathic, both races, but the ants even more so. And the ants keep these giant spiders as pets, like we keep hunting dogs. and they would control them telepathically. And so if you went into, say, a cave chasing one of these ants, you'd be eaten alive by a spider. And I had that happen more than once. And these spiders are mostly around the same size as I am, but they can get to 5 meters across. That's like 17 feet. That's what the big ones are like. Their venom is very nasty. The good news is it kills you right away. And then your friends come find you and put you back in a regen tank, because the Germans are where Langley got theirs. So
Wow.
I served on Mars during that war for 15 years after I graduated from Schule. And then I was transferred to the German space military. Now, each planetary colony has its own militia, but there's an overriding military that serves the German civilization out there, and it's called Nachtwaffen, which is night weapons. It's in the German translation of space in its usual reference is into the night. So they equate night with space. And they initially painted a lot of their ships black. And they still used the black uniforms from World War II and gray. The working class soldiers wore gray. The officers wore black. So you could tell at a distance who was who. And my job in Nachtwaffen was to fly the ship. So I was a lieutenant. That was the lowest rank you could have and still fly the ship. So, that was my job. And it's not as important as it sounds from that. The computer does most of the work, but when you go into hyperspace, the computer can't tell the difference between organics and inorganics. So we were having a lot of, you've heard about the Philadelphia experiment?
Mm-hmm.
Where the people were stuck in the walls and the floors of the Eldridge. That was because they were testing a hyperspace drive, and they didn't know they needed a navigator. The navigator's job is to keep the people out of the walls. In more precise terms, it's keeping the organics separated from the inorganics, because not all the organics are Terran human. We had ETs on some of the ships. So most of the navigators are ETs, usually Greys or Draco, because those are the allied races.
Mm-hmm.
But even Solar Warden uses Draco or Zetas as their navigators. There are not enough humans with that capability. So
Wow.
the agency that develops us, first off, they kidnap kids who are from bloodline families, because they are looking for that ET genetics that bloodline families have. You know, you'll hear some of the whistleblowers will talk about, well, you have to have the right genetics. That's what they mean. All humans are ET hybrids. All of us. Our chromosome number 2 has been engineered to make us compatible with Anunnaki. Other apes on this planet have one more pair of chromosomes than we have. We were changed on purpose so that their genetics would work with ours. So all humans are hybrids.
Yes.
And what they found is there are some families that are a higher percentage Anunnaki than others. Now, I know there are people out there claiming that it's reptilian instead of Anunnaki, but I got this from the families themselves.
Well, I was told by the Anunnaki that they are a mixture of reptilian and humanoid.
Yeah,
Some of them. There's different,
some of them.
right.
Some of
But
them.
the girl that I met was a shapeshifter. She was reptilian and she was humanoid.
Mm.
And she was 9 feet tall.
9 feet tall is consistent with Anunnaki. They range from 9 to 14 feet, depending on the individual. How
Well, I
well
was
they
told,
ate, or if they were born on Earth, because they're smaller if they were born here.
I have a feeling Nefertiti was Anunnaki because Akhenaten was Anunnaki. Akhenaten. I did a past life regression with a guy who was him, and I took him back to Nibiru, and when he showed up as Akhenaten, and that his family was like, "Oh, long
Yeah.
time no see," or whatever. They, you know.
Yeah, a lot of us have past lives as either more hybrid than we are now or as ETs.
Mhm.
And I think almost all of us do, but some of us remember it, and those are the people that are claiming starseed status. I think if you really looked at the soul history, that almost all of us are starseeds, that it's not like we're native to here.
Right.
One of the things that I've had a hard time accepting is the current belief that only humans have souls, and that not even all of us do. My personal belief is if you're running a meat suit, you have a soul.
Well, that's what I thought. But the
Yeah.
archangels say that not everybody here is human. Some are cyborgs, some are hybrids, some are soulless. They're the ones with the black eyes. Because they're
I've not
shapeshifters.
encountered any of those. I've heard about them, but I've not personally encountered them.
Shapeshifters.
I come from those families. My great-grandfather was a Windsor bastard, exiled from the United Kingdom to America. So I'm basically second cousin once removed to Charles. And I don't shapeshift at
Wow.
all. At all. My eyes will change colors from green to blue to gray as I lose energy in the day, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Mine
And
do.
a lot of us do.
Yeah.
Especially if you have green eyes or gray eyes,
My husband,
or hazel. Your eyes will change.
Don's got a little reptilian in him.
Yeah. I in a regression I found out, like, I was born with a tail. like literally in this reality. And in a regression, we found out by talking to my mother that when I was in utero, she had an ambiotic injection of reptilian DNA because her children were meant to be here. But what had happened is my sister was born, one of us died, I was born, then two more miscarriages. So they injected in utero while I was in her womb to make sure at least one more of us lived. And that's why when I was born,
the folks that create super soldiers and SSP folks, they take Anunnaki hybrid children and they add Draco DNA to them or Zeta DNA because they're trying to produce a more psychic individual. This is part of the program. This is why they think they can take me over and over and over, is they say they created me. That because I'm created by them, that I'm not a normal human and that I don't have the right to say no. And I basically say, F you, I have free will.
That's right.
So
Wow.
it gets really deep when you start arguing with these people about whether you have the right to live your own life. They tell me that I'm a truck that they own, that they built me and they trained me, and that they're not going to leave me alone because they own me outright. So slavery never stopped. It just changed who the victims were.
yeah.
So,
And what dimension it happens in.
oh, everything that happened to me was in 3D.
Yeah.
3D in this timeline. This is real stuff happening now. All of the missing money from the Pentagon is paying for this program. And it started in the 1950s in America. Now, there have always been super soldiers. If you look back in our mythology, Perseus, Theseus, Heracles, Samson in the Bible, Gilgamesh, Circe in the Odyssey. These are all super soldiers that were created by the Anunnaki in the past. And they have certain things in common with today's super soldiers. The child doesn't necessarily look like their parents. The mother tends to reject the child or be really cold if she doesn't. The child's extra smart, extra strong, but has times when they're crazy. And then they go into these episodes where they kill themselves, their children, their families, and whoever's close to them. The super soldiers were having a real problem with that the first part of this century. I don't want to take full credit because I wasn't alone in doing this, because Elena, what is it she calls herself? Ileana the Star Traveler, and a woman named Morgan Starr, and Cynthia Bolter, and a couple of other women who were working with us then. We set up a different approach. These super soldiers up to that time had been this really testosterone-laden, masculine, hyper-masculine, chest-thumping group that never admitted they had a problem. Until they would suddenly go off their rocker and kill their family because, well, we call it Omega programming. When you remember too much, the Omega programming kicks in to protect the program. And so you end up killing yourself and anyone you might have talked to. Same thing happened in ancient times. I mean, take a look at Heracles. The story of the story the Romans told of Hercules went crazy and killed his kids. Yeah.
Crazy.
So these are consistent stories throughout our history, and we're seeing the same things playing out in today's super soldiers.
Right.
So
And telling them in the TV shows you see too, all these shows, they're just telling you everything they're doing, like Continuum, Nikita. I was watching all these and I'm like, wow, they're really putting it out there.
yeah, and Nikita isn't a new show. I mean, there's a new version of it, but I remember Nikita in the 70s.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they redid it in the 80s as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Couple.
you know, um, the folks who are running things behind the scenes, part of their religious belief is if they put it in front of us and we don't say no, that it absolves them of their karmic debt. So I have real issues with the people who say what you resist persists, because if you don't resist it, you've agreed to it. And so we need to start saying no out loud or in writing. We need to say, I don't agree to this. I don't want this. Knock it off.
I do not consent. I am a sovereign being.
Exactly.
Yep.
And we have, I'm not the only one saying this. Mark Passio talks about it, that you have to say no.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a daily thing here.
Yeah,
Like, since we've all identified what's going on, we like it's said at least a half dozen times a day here.
good. Yeah, anytime I go into a movie theater, anytime I read a new book, I usually read fact nonfiction, but when I read fiction and if it's something I don't want to live with, I just say, no, I do not agree to this. I will not submit to this. And not so much on Facebook because the AI goes crazy, but on Twitter, I've been known to be kind of obnoxious because some of these people are really oversharing a lot of the stuff that's being planned. And I'll just say, no, I don't consent.
Mhm.
And they'll talk about some famous person said blah 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 blah, and I'll just say, why aren't they in jail for that?
Yeah.
You know, you say that on Facebook and you end up in Facebook jail or kicked off the platform. But
Yeah.
this is the approach that I'm taking. There's a lot of things that you cannot sit back and agree to. You cannot sit back and ignore, because if you ignore them, you've agreed to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those of us who are older remember the old rape laws, that if a woman did not say no, that she had given consent, even if she was unconscious.
Right.
That's the way these laws are operating, these spiritual laws. You have to say no or you've given consent, even if you weren't aware it was there. So you need to pay attention to what's being done around you.
Mhm.
And some of these things are being done, and then 20 years down the road, they're implemented.
Mm.
So you have to really pay attention.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been sharing a lot lately is where the Club of Rome said in 1972 that their plan was to bring the Earth's population down to under 1 billion. That
Right.
was their plan. People ignored it. and now what's going down.
Yeah,
They're trying.
they're
And
trying.
they have overlapping membership with the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum has been given control of the United Nations and WHO and they are now in the European Union trying to eliminate agriculture. And gee, we've got people in the United States trying to eliminate agriculture. Do you know what the outcome of that is? It's mass starvation.
Yes.
Now, why aren't they in prison for that?
Yeah.
How do they get away with this stuff? That's what I want to know. How do they get away with all of this? It's just
Because the masses sit back and let them.
Yeah. During the pandemic, I'm Canadian, our prime minister basically played out the entire script to the movie V for Vendetta, and nobody caught on. Like he did everything that was in that movie, and nobody blinked. I was like, what the fuck just happened?
We're having similar stuff in the United States over this century. They've spread it out over 3 presidents.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, he did the whole thing in one shot. Like I couldn't believe he turned the military on his own people, unarmed civilians threatening to take their children. And I'm like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
Well, look what happened in Minnesota. Didn't they defund the police department in Minnesota?
I know they've defunded the police in several areas, and in most of them, they're now changing their mind, and the police are saying, "No, thanks, we're done." I can't say that I blame them, but what really got bad was Dark Mirror, the show on Netflix. They had an episode that was on those robo-dogs. The police in Oakland, California are now using robo-dogs.
I saw that.
Did we learn nothing?
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Like it's the prequel to Terminator. Like we're just gonna roll into this. Like everybody that sticks those goggles on their face, I'm not gonna name brand because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But I swear those are the same people that will sign the contract to get into the Matrix cube and just lay down in the gel and become the battery. Like, are you guys kidding me? What are you doing?
There are a lot of people looking forward to becoming part of the AI.
Because not everybody's human.
Yeah.
That's the only explanation that makes any sense.
These robots that they build, they want to become more and more human-like.
Yeah, the robots want to become more human, and so many people running around in human bodies want to become robots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of them, it's because they have body image issues. That I kind of halfway get. The folks who have served in space, we are often inserted into bodies that don't match our body here. And then when we come back, there's confusion. I have served in male bodies. I have served in bodies that had so many modifications that I might as well have been a Borg from Star Trek. And this is what these programs are doing. And then to come back, being in my natural body I was born in, sometimes feels a little odd.
Yeah.
Especially the dichotomy between being I was taken, not this time for real, but I have been taken for up to 60 years and then brought back to the same time point or close to it. and then look in the mirror after I've been being 25 in the mirror for that whole trip, and now I'm back to 68.
Yeah.
It's like, is that really me?
You don't look
Yeah.
68, that's for sure.
I told Dawn that I hated having my picture taken, and it's because it doesn't match what I was not last night or the night before.
Yeah.
Mm.
Being 68 is okay if you've been all the stages in between.
Yeah.
But when you go from 25 to 68, it's like a shock.
Yeah.
You look in the mirror and it's like, oh, where did this old woman come from?
I was
And
gonna
no,
say you look about 30.
I don't look that bad for my age. I'm not complaining about that. I think I've aged well. It's just the sudden change from much younger to now. And for me, it's like overnight.
Yeah. Did you experience the basic trauma program in this existence too? Because I know that's something that I've come to grips with is like I kind of asked my partner, I was like, oh, you mean most people don't have 8 to 12 near death experiences, an abusive parent, like all of these traumatic events to keep you distracted, get you into addiction, get you into these problems, to keep you unaware of what's being done to your consciousness or your other existences or whatever.
My
Like,
daddy was a Church of Christ preacher who worked on a dairy during the week. And he thought his 5 children, I was the eldest, were his work crew. He told us that 3 teenage girls could do the work of 2 grown men. My brothers were too busy fighting amongst themselves. So us 3 girls did all the work that Dad wanted. And we went to school and we cleaned the house and we ran his garden and we went to church 3 times a week. And my potty mouth didn't come from him. It came from a sense of rage afterwards. My first husband was also a preacher for the Church of Christ. My parents arranged the marriage because I was 19 and not already married, and had no prospects because I was a girl geek. In those days, girls who were smart were called eggheads, and boys didn't think they would make a good wife because we had minds of our own. And my parents had gotten married. Dad was 19, mom was 16, and they'd had a whole house full of kids, and they expected that same life from me.
Yes.
I had a full scholarship, a full ride scholarship to Cornell University coming out of high school. I was 17 when I graduated. My father ripped up the offer in front of my face and told me girls don't need degrees, they need husbands.
Oh my God.
This is the kind of family I grew up in. My first husband gave me 10 concussions, a broken neck,
Oh.
and gonorrhea twice.
jeez.
And when I divorced him, I was excommunicated because I was supposed to love Jesus enough to let him kill me.
Oh hell no.
Oh,
Second husband turned out to be a mafia hitman.
holy fuck.
So we're talking about trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was such a bullshitter. I have no idea what was actually true and what wasn't. If the police came to talk to me, I have no idea, because I don't even know if the people I met, those were their real names.
Wow.
you know, because they gave me fake names, and the bullshit stories were so thick they could not possibly have all been true. I got to where I didn't believe any of them until I saw a black limo going down my driveway as I was heading towards it. I'm like, oh shit. My youngest was sitting there playing one of those video games on Nintendo, because this was in the 90s. My kid is sitting there beating the game. And the guy from the black limo is sitting in the living room listening to my kid yelping because I won, I won, I won. I come home, my house is a mess. I look at my husband, you let so-and-so come in here with it looking like this? Well, yeah. I'm like, so you asked about trauma. I
Yeah.
had 3 babies that wanted to live in the hospital because I come from the Stewart family, among others. Okay, Windsors, Stewarts, DeVere, Hamilton, Finley. Those are my father's people. Okay, they are so effing inbred that they might as well be one family. And they have blood diseases. Okay. In this instance, my kids had congenital adrenal hyperplasia, which all of those babies died before 1960. My firstborn was born in 76. So he spent months in the hospital. My second son had several defects from this bloodline, spent his first 3 years in the hospital. I, got pregnant again. That baby was born intersex. That's literally in between genders physically. And he spent, well, I say he because he's passing as male now. He's married to a woman. They seem to be happy. I'm happy for them. But he spent his first 5 years, he had 9 surgeries just to be able to pee. You talked about trauma. I had cancer of the cervix. I had an incident in labor with the last one where I had to learn how to speak English again. Funny, my German and French weren't touched at all, but I went in, I was a university senior and I came out talking at 2nd grade. I still have aphasia where sometimes I can't find the words, and you'll hear me on my show. I'll talk all the way around a definition for a word because I can't remember that damn word.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
trauma.
And that's what I
Trauma.
was wondering. And I have the belief now, like that's put in play in our lives to keep us from remembering everything that's gone on.
You would
Because
think so, but the NSA activated my memories on purpose. I was having bleed through memories in nightmares, flashbacks. I would wake up the neighbors screaming. But I didn't know what the dreams were about because I didn't remember any of that. In 2013, an NSA agent, and I knew he was an agent, but he told me he was a Russian translator, so I thought he was safe. By the way, folks, never, ever, 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 ever trust a government agency, a government agent, no matter what their job is. They're dangerous. Okay. He says, you hate DC. Come on, come see me and I'll take you for a tour. And while I was there, he used my remember code on me. And I came home and got plop. An entire lifetime's worth of memories. That particular trip was 55 years of memories plopped onto me, and they were all in German. And I spent 3 years going through all that stuff before I ever told a soul. My partner, the first interview I did, I said, well, I guess I remembered more than I thought. And he says, no shit. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's been trauma and years.
Mhm.
Years. It was 2013 when they activated. It's been 11 years that I've been remembering this. And it's only the last 2 years that I don't sit and cry most of the time. And I have a tutor. I don't know how he found me, but we're cousins. I haven't seen his family tree. He says that it's his mom and my father are, I think he said, sixth cousins. So he spent the last 15 years telling me how things really work. And in case anybody wonders about his credentials, as a child, he was babysat by David Rockefeller. So he went to Yale, and he spends a great deal of time giving me book lists. He doesn't give me the books, he gives me the list of the books. And I find them, usually as PDF downloads. And I read them and I come back and ask him a bunch of questions. And then he gives me another list.
Wow. That's fun. I
Um,
like that.
yeah, it's some of the reality he has shown me. I've sat and cried about that too,
Yes.
because the deeper I dug, the more trapped common people are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's every time I talk about it, I'm asked, well, what can we do about it? And reality is they have blocked almost every means of escape. And I sit there and rack my brain trying to figure out how we can change this. The first, most important step is stop giving it your consent.
Yes.
Stop counting on the government to save your ass, because they don't care.
Nope. They lie.
They
Penny.
lie when they would be better off telling the truth.
Exactly. I think that's a good place for us to stop for this time. I would definitely love to have you back. Would you like to tell the listeners where they can follow your work if you choose to? Is there special places you'd like them to direct them to follow you? Also, anybody that you'd like to give shout outs to for on your journey? I don't know.
Well, there's a crew that I work with who were all at Montauk. They were part of Project Phoenix. That would be Arkeem Ra, Joseph Powell, Amaria Swift. No, Amaria Sweet. I'm sorry. Susan Long. There's a whole group of others, about 15 people there. They range from their 20s now to my age, because Project Phoenix was in a time bubble. So they took people from all kinds of places. So there are people who are all in a lot of trauma, as Dawn put it, and they're working their way through some pretty horrific memories. And in the meantime, they're putting out a lot of really important information. So I used to be on YouTube. Some of my work is still there. YouTube has been deleting a video every couple of months. So I stopped uploading when they started. So I'm uploading my archive to Rumble, and my new work is on Odyssey, and I gave Dawn the links to both of those.
We'll put them in the description on the YouTube page. So those of you who are listening on to us online right now, it's going to be SOS QHT, and everything's going to be in the description. So that,
And I'd like to thank you for having me.
yes, thank you. I enjoyed it. It was such a pleasure. I could definitely talk to you for a while. Dawn, would you like to say any last words before we go?
Just you can catch all of my content on my pages, March 4th production, and it's the number 4 with TH. And thank you, Penny, for coming on. Your information along my journey is like hit me here and here. So like every time I listen to you, it just gives me something. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
And I definitely can I see and understand everything that you're going through, that you've been through. So it's interesting to be able to speak to you, because you know, this is real. This is really happening to people. So I will look forward to speaking with you off the record. So for the listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. You have tuned into wvew.org. Don't forget to check out the website. And if you have a business, you can become an underwriter to be part of the family. You know, definitely listen to us every Friday night, 10 to midnight Eastern Standard Time. This is the Mad Chatter Show, and you are listening to 107.7 FM, Broadwell's Community Radio. So have a good night, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next Friday.